All right, so the next topic we're going to be covering is the quadratic formula. So it's a little review from Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. The quadratic formula is a way to find the roots of the quadratic equation or the zeros of a quadratic function. Okay, so these are your solutions, your x-intercepts. So when your quadratic formula is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, okay, you're going to get negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, so if we look here, your a is the number being multiplied times the x squared. So in this case, there's no number there, but remember it is an invisible one, so that means a is equal to 1 here. Okay, and then plus 10x, so that means that our b is 10. So b equals 10. And then here we have our c, which is 9. And then we're going to go ahead and plug it into the formula. Okay, so our x-intercepts are going to equal negative b. So negative b, that's going to give us negative 10, because our b is a positive 10, so it's going to change the sign to a negative 10. And then plus or minus the square root of b squared. So in this case, our b is 10, so 10 squared minus 4 times our a is 1, so times 1, times our c is 9, so times c. Okay, and all of this is going to be over 2 times a, so 2 times 1. All right, so here we have negative 10 plus or minus. Now we are going to put the part under the square root into our calculators. So it's going to be negative 10 plus or minus, and we're going to get the square root of a number. And on the bottom, 2 times 1 is just 2. Okay, so in our calculators, what we're going to do is we're going to put 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9, and that gives us 64. Okay, so since we can take the square root of 64 and get a whole number, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and write that down. So negative 10 plus or minus, the whole number is 8 over 2. Okay, then we're going to divide each number by 2. So negative 10 divided by 2 gives us negative 5. Plus or minus 8 divided by 2 gives us 4. Okay, then once we get it down to that, we're going to go ahead and split it into 2 equations. So we have x equals negative 5 plus 4, and x equals negative 5 minus 4. So now we don't have to write the plus or minus, we write it both separately. So on the first one, negative 5 plus 4 gives us negative 1. And here, x equals negative 5 minus 4 gives us negative 9. Those are your 2 solutions, your 2 x-intercepts. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next problem. So here we have 18x squared minus 6x minus 2 equals negative 6x. So the problem with this one is it's not equal to 0 like this other problem. So this negative 6x, we're going to move to the other side by adding 6x. Okay, so we get 18x squared. Negative 3x plus 6x is going to give us 3x minus 2 equals, and then it cancels here, so now we have it equal to 0. Okay, so now we're ready to find our a, our b, and our c. So our a is a number being multiplied with the x squared, so a is equal to 18. Our b is the 3, so b equals 3. And then our c is equal to the number by itself. So in this case, our number by itself is negative 2. Okay, so x equals negative b. So negative 3. And then we do plus or minus the square root of b squared. So in this case, our b is a positive 3, so 3 squared minus 4 times 18 times 18 times negative 2, because our c is negative 2. And all of this is over 2 times 8. So 2 times 18. All right. So then we do the same thing again. We put the part under the square root in our calculator. So we do 3 squared minus 4 times 18 times negative 2. And that gives us 153. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 153 over 2 times 18 is 36. Okay, and then from there, if they ask you for a decimal solution, then you would continue. If they ask you for, this is an irrational number because we can't take the square root of 153 and get a whole number. So because you can't take the square root and get a whole number, this would be your simplest solution, okay? So this is a possibility on your Delta Math. If it's the irrational solution in simplest form, then this is what you would plug in. Now, if they ask you for a decimal, then you have to continue. So we're going to go ahead and continue that. Now we're going to take the square root of 153. That gives us 12.36. It rounds to 37 actually. Okay, divided by 36. And then we did the same thing that we did on the last problem. We are going to divide the negative 3 by the 36. I'm going to leave it as a fraction, okay? It is going to give you negative 1 over 12. So x equals negative 1 over 12 plus or minus. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the 12.37. And this one we can't write as a fraction because of the 0.37 makes it into a decimal. So it's going to be 0.34. Okay, so then we're going to split it into two different equations. X is equal to negative 112 plus 0.34, and x equals negative 1 over 12 minus 0.34. And once we put that in our calculators, let me go ahead and put in my calculator real quick. Okay, so the one that has a minus, or the one that has a plus, it's going to give us 0.26. So x equals 0.26. And this one gives me x equals negative 0.43. Okay, this will be your two solutions. Just make sure, I believe on Delta Math, it's going to ask you to round to the nearest tenth. I rounded to the nearest hundredth. So just double check to see what they want you to round to. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So this time we have the x squared on this side of the equal sign, so I'm going to have to move it over. And we do so by subtracting. So this is going to give us 2x squared minus x squared is just going to give us 1x squared. And then plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. So once we get it equal to 0, that's where we're going to find our solutions. We're going to find our 0. So that's why we have to get it to equal to 0. So then here our a is 1. Our b is positive 5, and our c is negative 3. Okay, so then we're going to plug it into our formula. So it's going to be x equals negative b, so negative 5, plus or minus the square root of our b is 5, so 5 squared, minus 4 times a. Our a is 1. Times c. Our c is negative 3, and all of this is going to be over 2 times a. In this case, our a is 1. Okay, so x equals, remember we put just the part under the square root first, so negative 5 plus or minus, and then the square root of, and then 2 times 1 gives us 2. So I'm just going to fill that in already. And then in our calculator, we're going to go ahead and put 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3, and that is going to give us 37. Now we can't take the square root of 37 and get a whole number. So if they ask you for the simplest solution, then you're going to give this answer. If they ask you for the answer in a decimal, then we have to continue. So negative 5 plus or minus, I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of 37 in my calculator. And that gives me 6.08. 0.08. And then we're going to go ahead and divide both the negative 5 by 2. That is going to give me negative 2.5 plus or minus the 6.08 divided by 2 gives me 3.04. So once you do that, we're going to go ahead and split it into two different ones. So one is going to be x equals negative 2.5 plus 3.04, and x equals negative 2.5 minus 3.04. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in my calculator. The first one is going to give me x equals 0.54. And then this one is going to give me x equals negative 5.54. And that's it. Okay, so this is the one, if they ask you for the decimal version, this is what you're going to give. All right, the last example, number 4. So here they give us 2x squared plus 4x minus 8 equals negative 4. So we're going to go ahead and move over the 4 to the other side. So we're going to add the 4 to both sides. And we get 2x squared plus 4x. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4, and this is equal to 0. And then we do the same thing. A is going to be 2. B is going to be 4. And C is going to be negative 4. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and plug that into our quadratic formula. So it is x equals negative b, so negative 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 4 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, and c, which is negative 4. Okay, and then all of this is going to be over 2 times a. So 2 times our a is 2. Okay, and then we do the same thing. We simplify only the part that's under the square root. So negative 4 plus or minus, and then 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 4, and that gives us 48. So the square root of 48. Now we can take the square root of 48 and get a whole number. 2 times 4 here gives us 4. So we're going to go ahead and we can simplify this. 48, I don't know if you guys remember from, I believe we did this in geometry. In case you didn't, we can simplify it. It'll be negative 4 plus or minus. 48 is the same thing as 16 times 3. And then this is over 4. Now 16, we can find the square root of 16. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus. We can take the square root of 16, that gives us 4. And the 3 will stay trapped inside the square root. Okay, and all of this is over 4. Okay, then from there, you're going to go ahead and divide each one by 4. So negative 4 divided by 4 gives us negative 1 plus or minus, and then you divide the 4 by 4, and that gives us 1. And the square root of 3. So if they ask us for the answer in simplest form, this is what you're going to give this time. Okay, so instead of giving this one right here, you're going to give the negative 1 plus or minus 1 in the square root of 3. Okay, now if they ask it in decimal form, then we're going to go ahead and put 1 times the square root of 3 in our calculators and get the decimal for it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick, and that gives me 1.73. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus 1.73. And then we go ahead and split it off into two answers. So x equals negative 1 plus 1.73 and negative 1 minus 1.73. So -1 plus 1.73, -1 minus 1.73. I put in my calculator, and so the first one is going to give me x equals -2.73. The other one's going to give me x equals, oh, I put it backwards. This one's -2.73, and this one's 0.73. Okay, so if they want it in the simplest radical form or in the irrational form, you're going to leave it as a square root, or if they want it as a decimal, you're going to leave it in the other answer. All right, thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.